Ready? All right, if you would turn to the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 20. We've been doing a series titled Israel Wants a King. And this has been mostly focused on King Saul. He's the man that God gave them. Whether they wanted him or not, it's who God gave them. And he didn't turn out to be what they wanted. And they, as usual with the nation of Israel, in the Old Testament, they grumbled and complained about everything God gave them. Whether it was good or bad, it didn't matter. And, of course, we've already been through the beginnings with Saul and David and their relationship, just the beginnings of it. It started out good, and like Saul's, his reign as king started out good, and then it kind of fizzles out. And their relationship does. And Saul has already convinced David to marry his daughter. So David, the son-in-law of the king. David is also best friends with Saul's son, Jonathan, who has been Saul's right-hand man all along since he's been king. Fights battles with him and is second in command of the army. David defeated Goliath, and Saul rewarded him, not just with the marriage of his daughter, but put him in charge of the army for a time, thinking that David would be killed and the nation would again focus on Saul instead of on David. And that didn't work. God's protecting David. Now in chapter 20, it's more of Saul trying to kill David. He gets with his son Jonathan, and he's trying to get Jonathan to either do it himself or hire it done, through somebody else, whichever. And of course, Jonathan and David and Saul I don't think he realizes that David and Saul are best buddies, best friends, almost like brothers. And of course, now they're brothers by marriage now, so they're even closer. So we'll start with verse 1, chapter 20. I don't know if we'll get through the whole chapter. This is a long chapter, but we'll see. So 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 1, and David fled from Naioth in Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, what have I done? What is mine iniquity? And what is my sin before thy father that he seeketh my life? So David here, in the last chapter, we saw where David, his wife, pleaded with him to flee and get away. He went to Ramah to be with Samuel, the prophet. And David has finally realized that Saul is trying to kill him. And he's seen the evidence of it for sure, and he doesn't understand why. David's not done anything to Saul. Verse 2 says, and he said unto him, God forbid that thou shalt not die before my father. Behold, my father will do nothing, either great or small, but that he will show it to me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. So this is Jonathan speaking in verse 2. And Jonathan tells David, whatever my father decides, his decisions, I hear about them first before anybody else does. That was how the close relationship between Saul and his son, Jonathan. And he tells David, he said, if I hear of something, I'm going to let you know. So don't worry about it. And David sware, moreover, and said, thy father certainly knoweth that I have found grace in thine eyes. And he saith, let not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is but a step between me and death. So David's assumption is that because Saul knows now that David and Jonathan are friends, he's just not going to tell Jonathan anything. That doesn't seem to be the case, at least not yet anyway. Saul still confides in Jonathan, and we'll see more of that later in this chapter. But he says, there is but a step between me and death. I'm just one step away from being killed. He knows how serious a matter this is. Then said Jonathan unto David, whatsoever thy soul desireth, I will even do it for thee. And we're seeing the close relationship between Jonathan and David here. How they love each other like brothers. And Jonathan's willing to do anything to protect David. And David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat, but let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. If thy father at all miss me, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me that he might run to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all his family. Now, this new moon meal, whatever feast or whatever you want to call it, with the king, seems to have been some type of a tradition with Saul, something that he required. And I would assume that is with David being in the family now, Saul expects the men of his family to be there. And we'll see later what was expected, and with David, that David was not there and what happens. But David knows that he's expected to be there. But he also knows his family has a yearly sacrifice coming up. And it's in the city of Bethlehem, his hometown, and that his presence is required there also. And so to avoid any conflict with Saul, David's idea is, well, I'll just go home to Bethlehem and be with my family, and that'll, maybe things will cool off with Saul. And he tells Jonathan, he said, you explain to him, you explain to your father that this is why I'm not there. Now, this feast that was going on at Saul's place at the palace started on the day of the new moon, and it lasted for 3 days. So he was going to miss 3 days. So eventually, at least by the second day, he's going to be noticed that he's gone, that he's not there. Verse 7, he says, if he say thus, it is well, thy servant shall have peace. But if he be very wroth, then be sure that evil is determined by him. Now remember, we don't see this in this chapter. But if you remember in the chapters before this, God had put a evil spirit on on Saul. Saul has got this evil spirit that shows up from time to time. And as his life goes on, as we read more and more into his story, you'll see that it appears more and more as we go along. And it is what is driving the wickedness that's in Saul. The evil decisions he makes and all that is driven by this evil spirit that God has put on him. And because David is now God's chosen man for the kingdom, to be the king, to replace Saul at some point, this evil spirit has got Saul all stirred up with jealousy. And so, in verse 7, we see that David tells Jonathan, he said, if this brings peace, if me not being there brings peace, then so be it. But, don't be surprised if he's very angry because I'm not there. Therefore thou shalt deal kindly with thy servant, for thou hast brought thy servant into a covenant of the Lord with thee, notwithstanding. If there be any in me iniquity, slay me with thyself, for wouldest thou bring me to thy father? Or shouldest thou bring me to thy father? Now, David and Jonathan had a pact between them, a covenant, he says here, a covenant of the Lord. They were both saved men. They were both brothers in the Lord. And that's how they were very close. And he tells him, he said, if I've done something wrong, kill me yourself. Get it over with. But Jonathan knows David's not done anything wrong. This is all on Saul. And Jonathan said, Far be it from thee, for if I knew certainly that evil were determined by my father to come upon thee, then would not I tell it to thee. Then said David to Jonathan, Who shall tell me? Or what if thy father answer thee roughly? So David's trying to go through every scenario here. If your father has got something legitimate against me, tell me now. Kill me now if that's the case. But if you go back and you tell him the reason I'm not there is because I'm with my family and I've got a legitimate reason, and he's angry about that, and if he keeps you from coming to warn me, send somebody. What are you going to do? How are you going to get word to me? And verse 11, and Jonathan said unto David, Come, let us go out into the field. And they went out both of them into the field. And Jonathan said unto David, O Lord God of Israel, when I have sounded my father about tomorrow any time, or the third day, or behold, if there be good toward David, and I then send not unto thee, and show it thee, the Lord's do so, and much more to Jonathan. But if it please my father to do thee evil, then I will show it to thee, and send thee away, that thou mayest go in peace, and the Lord be with thee, as he hath been with my father. And thou shalt not only, while yet I live, show me the kindness of the Lord, that I die not, but also that thou shalt not cut off thy kindness from my house forever. Know not when the Lord hath cut off the enemies of David, every one from the face of the earth. So it says in verse 16, and Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, Let the Lord even require it at the hand of David's enemies. So they make a pact here, a covenant, if you will, that basically Jonathan's going to look out for him. He's going to let him know if his father has found a way to get to him or to try to kill him again. Remember, he has sent people before. He has sent men before to try to kill David, and it didn't work. He'll try again, and it won't work. But Jonathan has vowed to do everything he can to let David know when his father is about to try to kill him again. And Jonathan caused David to swear again, because he loved him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to David, Tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. And when thou hast stayed 3 days, then shalt thou go down quickly and come to the place where thou didst hide thyself when the business was in hand, and shalt remain by the stone easel. And I will shoot 3 arrows on the side thereof, as though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send a lad, saying, Go, find out the arrows. If I expressly say unto the lad, Behold, the arrows are on this side of thee, take them, then come thou, for there is peace to thee and no hurt, as the Lord liveth. But if I say thus unto the young man, Behold, the arrows are beyond thee, go thy way, for the Lord hath sent thee away. So they've got a plan. Jonathan's made up a plan so that when he comes, if there's bad news, he's going to shoot the arrows. There's this stone there, this big rock. He's going to shoot the arrows, and depending on where he aims and they fall, he's going to have a lad with him, maybe his armor bearer. We don't know for sure who this is. We do know that Jonathan earlier in the story had an armor bearer, which would have been a young man. He'll tell him what to do, to go out and gather the arrows, and depending on where they fall, that's how David is to know what the news is. if it's good or bad. Verse 23, and as touching the matter which thou and I have spoken of, behold, the Lord be between thee and me forever. So this is a covenant that Jonathan is willing to make with David forever. They're vowing to protect each other forever. Now, I think we'll stop there for tonight. We'll pick back up with verse 24 next time. That's about halfway through the chapter. But we'll see next time what happens. We'll see where Saul finally does recognize that David is not there at the feast. And then we'll see what his response is. And also we'll see that he realizes Jonathan knows what's going on. And he doesn't kill Jonathan, but he's not happy with him. So we'll stop there for tonight, and we'll pick back up again with chapter 24 next week.